What is interesting in this sense is that the idea of natural law in relation with the idea of specifically international law became became really important during the discovery of the America, or discovery of a new world. This is really important because this type of idea was born with the religion people, for example, the Dominicians. In fact, if we have to consider the discovery of America, we have to consider that the discovery of America, it was developed firstly by the Catholic Spanish, that it was in relation therefore with the state of Rome, better with the idea of a pope in that period, Alexander the Sixth, or Rodrigo Borgia. This is really interesting because according to the idea of the Christian, the Catholic Spanish, and therefore the idea of the sovereigns, the kings of Spanish, on the one hand, in a firstly Isabella di Castiglia, Ferdinando d'Aragona, in a second time Carlo V, and in a third time, for example, Philip II. According to this, the accord, the deal with the Pope between, therefore, the Kingdom of Spain, or better, the Kingdom of Castile, and the King, or better, the sovereign of Rome, of the state of the Church, the Pope, it was that, according to this, if the Spanish wanted to be to have the territories, the land of the New World that the conquistadores had discovered, and in the first time that Columbus had discovered, therefore the Spaniards had to develop and explained to the Indios, to the Native Americans, the Catholic ideas, and to develop a specific type of Catholic ideas in that lands. This is really interesting because, therefore, according to the Catholic Church, if Spanish did this, the Catholic Church had to consider the possibility, or had to consider the necessity to recognize that the Kingdom of Spain had to have the lands of the New World. Therefore, in relation with this deal, the Catholic Church had to develop the Christian ideas on the New World, to have the support of the Pope, to have technically the idea of dominium, the idea of kingdom on the New World. But and therefore, a lot of religious, for example, Dominicians, for this went to the New World, but at the same time, some of these religious, for example, one of these, Las Casas, Bartolomé de las Casas, became to criticize this type of movement because, according to Las Casas, for example, or according also to with other theologians and religious of this time, this type of structure, it was a contradiction in relation with the idea of metaphysics objective law, in relation with the idea that, according to Las Casas, for example, or other Dominicians, the idea of metaphysics explains that there is a specific type of freedom, the freedom of the man, that has to choose what is just and what is unjust. Therefore, if the Pope, or therefore, if there is a deal between Pope and Church, between the Pope, Church, and the Catholic Spain, therefore the sovereign, that explains that I have to do this, but technically I have the freedom to choose as a religion man, or as a man technically, therefore I can choose if this type of deal between Church and the Catholic Spain, it is just or unjust. Therefore, probably it's not necessary that I have to do this. Therefore, I have to develop and explain what is the Catholic ideas, or impose my ideas on that lands where there are people, where live people that are not Catholics. This is really interesting because with this argument was born the idea of international law, in relation with the idea that the idea of exportation of values could be wrong. And this type of idea was born technically and factually from the Catholic Church in relation with his men that derived from the philosophical arguments a specific type of internal criticize against the power. The dominations, for example, some of these dominations that had to be a role, that had to be a duty, became to criticize this duty in relation with the fact that they were free in relation with the power, because they were religions that had to consider the main objective law. And the main objective law is the law of God, not of Spain, not of a rule of Spain, not of a sovereign of Spain, not of a pope. This is the main idea that explain how the international law was born. And this is really interesting because, therefore, this type of international law tries to think about the connection of a position between the cultures and the connection between cultures and the difficulties and the problems of the exportations of values, of the exportation of values. And this is really interesting, and this is an important problem that we live also today. The relationship between the right that we live in our countries and the natural law in relation with the human rights. Because, for example, on the one hand, in relation with the territory where you are, the rights are different. Yeah, every nation had to consider, should consider the human rights as the fundamental rights, but this is not happen everywhere. At the same time, the idea of law in relation with the state of law, the rule of law of that state, in relation with the fact that the rule of law changed considering the state. And this is another argument really interesting that it was developed by the Christian Church. For example, by Las Casas, that it was a domination.